morning is around what's happening with women in STEM, right? What are the challenges, what's the initiatives, what's going on. Now, before I throw to my lovely panel, I just want to share, I'm 52. When I went for my Year 12 career meeting, I was told I was doing physics, chemistry and 3-unit maths, so I should be a doctor or engineer. There's, quote, not enough women in engineering, you should do that. That was what I was told back then. From my mind, there's not dramatic changes yet. So I'm going to ask each of you to introduce yourselves very briefly in the terms of what's your world that links through. And then if you can please just give me that earliest memory of when you went, this is weird. Yeah? Who wants to give us on?
Right, so at the start. Hi everyone, I'm Dorothy Watson. I work here on the Innovation Campus. I work at Accelerate as the Women in STEM and Entrepreneurship Coordinator. I have a background as a biologist, so I have been to Antarctica studying the Mossens down at Casey Station. And so that was an interesting phenomenon because Antarctica is still very male dominated in the science realm and in the operations of our Antarctic stations as well. So that got me interested in gender equity in STEM, really. And a role came up at iAccelerate, which is the University of Wollongong's Startup Accelerator and Incubator. And that was on supporting women in STEM and entrepreneurship. And I thought, well, I don't know anything about entrepreneurship, but I know quite a bit about being a woman in STEM. So I thought, this is where I can support and help out. And my first memory, I think I've been thinking back to my own high school careers conversations. Engineering was never mentioned in my high schooling, just never came up. But I loved biology. I had a really great biology teacher, and that's carried me through.
Well, that's a common comment, isn't it? I had a great teacher. Yeah. Heather.
Thanks, Catherine. My name is Heather Catchpole. I studied geology and but moved into career mostly in science communication, working a lot with education, and I now work for Plasticon Educator Program, so we run professional learning on things like engineering in elementary, and also just to raise teacher confidence generally. Prior to that, I founded the Careers with STEM magazines, which is all about raising awareness of role models and women in STEM. So I guess I've probably been working on this for about 15 years of my life. And I know you wanted us to be quite real. I think the moment that I thought this is weird is probably back in my degree. It was a male-dominated area, forestry, geology, and so on. And it was also quite a threatening landscape in some ways, particularly on field trips. There was a lot of drinking. There was a lot of very intense situations that you were exposed to as a young woman. And I kind of wanted to call that out because I think that uncomfortableness is still part of the issue and still something that's not being addressed. I recently talked to a friend whose young Indigenous daughter has been working in an engineering role for a couple of years. I'm sure they were really glad to have her. It was a great program. She had a graduate program. She's been working there and she's now left saying, I'm sick of working with the old blokes. Yeah. So, yeah, just wanted to raise those couple of issues.
Hi, my name is Professor Olivia Meza. I'm from Western Sydney University. So I was an engineer for 12 years before I decided to become an academic. So I just want to ask you all, how many female bridge engineers you know? One. Right, you see, like I remember when I when I studied. When I first came into the room, full of male, it was 452. I remember the number. And guess how many female are there? 2. And now the girl that I have, we are still engineers, so bless that. But now, even now, like after 20 years, because it is I studied 20 years ago. Now you go, yeah, it's slightly changed, but still not enough. You know, the number is still lower than and what we expected. I would expect like in this order that with us promoting, female engineer or STEM in women in STEM, we should get 50-50, but no, the number is still lower than 15%. Because I know that because I'm doing it very well. So in the university, that's why in order to increase this female in engineering, so I founded a group called Women of Wisdom. In short, it's called WOW. You know, how many women when you come into the room say, wow, right, we like it. So that's how wow came. So after this wow, the retention is 95% in our school. Because we meant, like I can tell you, we encourage a lot of females to go into STEM. Once they go into STEM, they are lost. Nobody is there to mentor them, to retain them. I find that retention is very important in order to change.
Absolutely.
Hi, thank you. Hi, I'm Kirsty Scott. I work at HP, and so my path's a little bit different to all the lovely ladies here. I'm not an engineer, I'm not a mathematician, but I do work in technology and have done my entire career. Like Olivia, I have many times been the only female in the room, and it's been tough at times. Yeah, you know, the boys' club is still very much there, and I lead a team across Asia. And I'm very passionate about bringing women into my team, bringing women in from, you know, very early in their career and allowing them to move up. And, you know, some women stay in the technology field. Maybe they're not necessarily technical, but we're supporting the technology processes, and obviously we're a heavy technology company at HP.
So I'm very big on language, and I want to ask each of you to share, what do you think are the barriers or the problems? What are the blocks that are happening? Personally, being in education, what I feel some of the blocks are is the language around STEM, right? First of all, what we can do is grab the language of STEM and we keep using that rather than unpacking exactly what you said of, actually, these are my roles. So I've got an education degree, like many of you in the room. I've worked in IT. I've worked in the health and the medical research industry. I facilitated clinical trial recruitment and development. That's all STEM. But we're not necessarily in other areas explaining the breadth. So I question, from one perspective, is that lens of what STEM looks like only these cliche images, or are we giving breadth? What do you guys think are the blocks or the obstacles? Heather, can I throw to you first? You did mention a big one already in terms of that culture that you're getting in there and then the lifestyle doesn't fit. Are there any other things you think?
Look, I think that problems around women in STEM are systemic, and that was something that the Women in STEM Ambassador Program really talked about, is we're not changing women, we're not get more interested, you really need to be more interested, please can you get interested in STEM? The STEM Equity Monitor stats for engineering showed that in primary school, I think it was like 20 or 30% of girls interested in engineering. In high school, it's like, maybe 21, maybe 19, and then in tertiary education, it actually goes down. So they are becoming less interested in engineering throughout schooling, right? So there's, obviously, yes, that's a problem, but it's systemic change that we need to make, and we need to address that there is discrimination, that is, you say that the language is, I've been a businessman for most of my life, right? Like, we're still reclaiming language and reclaiming those roles and doing a lot of that kind of work. So I think that there's a lot of incredible programs, but unless we address that systemic change, unless we create more support, and that sounds like every time Olivia opens her mouth, I'm just like, the stuff you have done is amazing. That is so cool. And creating those kind of networks and that kind of support is really important. I talked about this and stereotypes and role models for years, but it wasn't until I studied technology myself that I realised just how uncomfortable I was. And the guy next to me was doing this program and it was going to be great, and he was doing this coding and it was going to be so cool, and I was like, oh, you're so much better than me. And when we got our marks, he wasn't, right? But I believed him.
Yeah. That's that imposter jumping
right?
out, right?
Until you experience that, you don't realise how powerful that is.
Kirsty, what about you?
I think that there's just not enough education at an early stage, raising awareness and, making girls realise that they can do anything they want. I think somebody mentioned earlier on a panel, I was the first in from both sides of my family to go to university, grew up in a small town. I moved away to go to university and then further away for job opportunities. But again, the degree I did a business degree at a technology focused university. There were very few girls on my degree. It's interesting, and I've seen that continue through my career, and I think we need more male allies as well that support girls from a young age and in business so that they believe that anything's possible and they have the confidence to speak up and they know that they are, they're equal.
And we have the support.
Yes.
And that's a great comment because quite often in the conversation around women in leadership or women in STEM, we don't bring men in, but you guys are part of the solution. You are integral, and quite often we're set up for success because of males who have facilitated that. Jen?
So, on the topic of language, something that I love working in my role for the last 2 years has been switching from the idea of a leaky pipeline, which is quite passive, that women just are going along the trajectory of their careers and they fall out, that's nobody's fault, but we should try and help. A leaky pipeline is not what's happening. What we have is I can't remember who to attribute this to, but the idea is actually a hostile obstacle course that you are trying to navigate as a woman in STEM. There are so many barriers, and they are actively put in your place sometimes by people on purpose. And so I coordinate industry internships for women who are doing their PhD in STEM. I coordinated 30 in the last 2 years, 31 as of last Monday. And a lot of the women who come through that program, we also take them through leadership training, not because we want, women have something to improve upon. They're all incredible leaders already. It's just bringing that awareness that they have those skills and tools already to the forefront. And a lot of them have said after doing leadership trainings, like, I wish my supervisors could do this too. And so when we are upskilling women, we should be upskilling everyone on unconscious bias. If you are a higher up, that you should be considering women, and if they haven't had those opportunities in their career and they are falling out of this leaky pipeline or hostile obstacle course, that you need to give them further opportunities or mentoring or sponsorship instead, and say, what do you need in your career to succeed, and finding out from them how to help that individual, because everyone's circumstances are different, how that individual can succeed and supporting them in that way.
Doesn't that statement a hostile obstacle course, which is right? Doesn't that have a different energy completely to leaky pipeline, right? They have just the association across to it. Olivia, what would you have as advice?
Well, like most of it has been covered, but like I still think we need to educate the society, not just men, but society. Look, my first mentor is a male, and he's a very tough Irishman. I remember like when I went to interview with him, my first interview in Australia, bear in mind I'm not from Australia, he shouted at me. He asked me one question. He said like, technically you're fine, you're a very smart person, but you already talked to me for 30 minutes. How do you read your English? Oh my gosh, I don't know how to read my English. I said to him, you already talked to me for 30 minutes. What do you think my English is? He shouted at me. He said like, when I asked you, you answered. Oh my gosh, I was crying after the interview. I said, screw it. I said like, I'm not going to get that anymore. And then I got the job. And then like he's now still my mentor. He retired. He retired now. He's a beekeeper. And then he always check up on me in LinkedIn and said, Olivia, you did well. I'm very proud of you. But 15 years after that, he asked me one thing. He said, do you remember I shouted at you when you interviewed me when you were undergrad? I said, yes, I remember that there forever. He said, because you don't have confidence. I want to build your confidence. So educate, but not I don't want people to educate other women don't. But I think you should educate the female on how to be confident and educate the male or to promote and support the female. I think that is a very, very
Great comment.
Yes.
The human skills, right?
Yes, very.
So I've got 3 daughters, 3 very different daughters. One of them loved maths. So how many people, can I just have a show of hands who's in education still in the room? Okay, my second daughter loved maths when she was at school. Did advanced maths, absolute heart on the table, loved it. The pace and the teacher, she dropped it. How many students are hemorrhaging because of the curriculum that is now the advanced and extension maths and science syllabuses, because we're trying to push more people in. We're actually pushing it across, and as you guys know, I'm working a lot with young people. They are getting out even though they're passionate. So part of it is false data. Because they're giving up, during school, not giving up, but shifting. Why are they shifting? It's a game. They don't get the HR, they don't get the opportunities, they don't get the opportunity, they can't get the foot on the ladder.
Yeah.
But these human skills are a really, really interesting comment because it's not necessarily about the structures for school. It's actually about having space to build people's confidence, comfort, communication, negotiation skills,
Yes.
right? So it's not actually going back to what they're already passionate about in the STEM subjects. It's everything else to navigate this landscape we're talking about possibly. You mentioned your WOW program, which I love a WOW.
Oh, yeah.
Can you share one initiative that you have implemented where you've seen positive outcomes in retention or attraction for women into STEM? And then I'm going to throw to the room, and if you guys don't have questions for me, then we'll add, but you should have good questions. Olivia, do you want to-
Okay, with WOW program, the first day the women came into our school, I did what I call a icebreaker event. So icebreaker is like, like when you came in, like, oh, it's 200 and only 5 female. They always stick with female, which I don't like. And I invite them, and then invite their peers. With my rule is all the academic has to be there, and also a few of our graduate alumni to come and talk to them, and then tell them how they went through the experience and all those things, and also we also help them to network so that in the second year I want them to get an engineering job. So the retention has been good. Before that, our retention was 40%. I did interview a few that dropped out. They said they don't feel connected to the course. They thought engineering was their calling, but in the first year they don't connect. So with nowadays younger generation is different from us, right? When they don't connect, or it's not she cannot see how can she impact in the future, they will quit. So that is how we do it, icebreaker session. And then, the retention now has been 80%, so which is good. The people who doesn't want to study, I did interview them as well. They really did not want to study. They went to psychology or medicine, which is okay.
Which is okay.
Yeah, which is okay. It's still STEM. It's still STEM. So I'm happy with that.
And that's natural.
Yeah.
Natural transition.
Yeah, so with the WOW program, we what I emphasize on this WOW, right, is when we get them in, we have to mentor them. We have to make sure, check up on them. We check up on them at least 3-4 times a year, just to make sure they are okay. If they are struggling with a subject, I just get one of the academic to help them, tutor them. In that way, they feel good about it. So
And you're ahead of the game then.
yes,
You're
yes, we
seeing
are.
things and you've got that mentorship
Yes,
structure.
yes.
George, do you want to add?
What I'd like to add, I think one of the best things I've seen for keeping women in STEM and helping their career progression is actually one of my former bosses. Her name's Sharon Robinson. She's the University of Wollongong's only female distinguished professor. And when I met her, she was a professor. And then she said, well, there's only 2 senior professors, so I'm going to go for a senior role. And then we had a big retirement in the COVID era. And then there was no female distinguished professor. She said, well, I guess I have to do that too. And she applied for that role. But at the same time as saying, if I want people to be it, they have to see it, she was also actively helping other women with their promotion applications and saying, you haven't applied yet, why haven't you? You're ready. And that encouragement of saying, you are ready, you should go for it. Because women don't, there's this statistic that, a woman might apply for a job if she has 110% of the criteria, but only then, until they are encouraged or pushed to do so. So that idea of putting energy into the system, you do have to actually, it's not an effortless thing, you do have to spend time and energy. And her as my boss, she said, this is something, if I want to see women staying here and progressing in their careers, I have to put my personal time and effort in. And so that's what she did.
And
so many
facilitate that opportunity, right? And it's not only that I'm seeing it, but I'm actually saying to you, you're going to apply.
Yeah.
I'm going to work
I
with
will
you
sit
to
with you.
apply for this because you've got
Yeah.
that data is so true.
Yeah, and in doing that, she says, I'm doing it, but throughout this process, I say, who are you doing it for as well? How are you giving back to the next person?
I've done lots of things, and I don't think anything's particularly worked. Some of the things I wanted to call out some actual resources for educators. So one of the things I did was that you can't be, you can't see. We created about 700 role models on Careers with STEM, so there's plenty of role models out there if you want to see female role models in STEM. I wanted to call out the Questacon Educator Programs does Engineering is Elementary, which is about showcasing different engineering careers and what engineers do. And one of the resources that we used to build that program was from the GIST, which is not mine, but I did contribute to it. So that's the Girls in STEM Toolkit. And they have a fantastic page. It's something like 7 ways to make your classroom gender neutral or something like that. Like, these are just really practical kind of things. I also just wanted to call out being hands-on, which is something we're very passionate about at Questacon. And there was a great panel just before. I'm pointing to her and she's on her computer, so everyone's going to look at her now, just behind you, Kelsey. You talked about using a drill press, right? Like, sometimes just that confidence of just doing things and practicing things, it's so important to just get girls to do stuff and to have that kind of practical experience. I'm really proud of the fact that I taught my son how to change a tyre. Right? Like, and he was really respectful. He's like, it's a car, it's cool, wow, my mum, I think like we really need to be part of that and own that kind of space as well. Yeah.
I think that's great. I'm also a mum of boys, and I am so passionate about making sure that they help to, push and drive all of this as well. I think so we're, it's peaks and troughs, I think, sometimes as to whether our programs are working or not. At HP, we are very intentional about making sure we have the right number of women in leadership positions. I think we've still got a lot of work to do around that. When I came into the organisation, one of my asks was around flexibility, and I had a request for one to work a 9-day fortnight. I told them we're still young. I've done it in my previous organisation, and when the hiring manager was asked, don't know, I've never been asked that before. So we went off to think about it, and they came back to me and said no. But we're really flexible. And I said, well,
How?
on this one. So the lady who was the talent acquisition lead had gone to her manager, who'd gone and sat in front of her in Singapore and said, we want more women in leadership positions. So this is what we've got to do. We've got to bend, got to be flexible to get there. But I think, aside from our focus on making sure we have women in leadership, we're also doing some great programs about the early intervention as well, which, you get to see if they're going to work. My good friend over there, Bray, is doing some fantastic work early, in schools with educating them around tech and STEM, getting them to solve challenges through AI and gamifying and making it fun, and the girls are killing it. So, hopefully that will continue through.
And that's an interesting comment for 2 sides. First, that we don't know yet, but it doesn't matter. Because isn't that part of the ripple, right?
Try.
We're trying, and then,
it's not.
exactly, and then your comment about, some of it hasn't worked, but it probably has worked for some. So we don't know, right?
More of a statement. There are a lot of people who promote each other, and a lot of men promote men. You go on LinkedIn and it's my mate blah is doing this amazing thing. So I challenge all of you, choose a woman, promote her program on LinkedIn. And you can really easily track it. The same men getting awards, then their friends get the same award, tens of thousands of dollars, and where are the women promoting women? So I challenge the men, promote the women. We ran Gadget Girls, and all the dads and the brothers and the uncles, they were the support crew. We put the girls out the front, but the men were in the room. The pendulum has swung too far. I run One Giant Leap. I have a favourite shirt. It's got Neil Armstrong's footprint on it. It says One Giant Leap starts here. I bought it at the Johnson Space Centre. I was in a meeting and this man came up and he said, tell me about One Giant Leap. So I'm off on my spiel. He goes, actually, I was just looking at your breasts. So deal with that in the industry that we work in. How do you answer that? Because that's what I do every day. So I just want to challenge you, support the women in the room.
Hi, lovely conversations. I was just like bursting to share this with you. Just 2 3 days before, so I have many hats to wear on. The hat that I'm talking about is I'm a teacher at the Macquarie University College, where I'm teaching this term in engineering design, and I get to see that my group has all males. So I get to see that actually in the third or fourth class, because I was not really looking into the gender, but suddenly I saw that, okay, they all are working. Oh my God, there's no female. And I was very curious to ask them that what would be their answer, because they are, these teenagers, late teenagers. And I asked them, did you see there is no female here? What could be the reason? And some of the boys answered me that because engineering is for guys, and because women don't like to think, so they don't take engineering. So I would like to understand, like, what sort of
Where's that coming from?
yeah, also, I mean, how would you answer this? Thank you.
Great question.
So, as a mom to two boys, my youngest son, he's always challenged me every single day. And when he's very young, he's, 1, 2, 3, girls can't do that, girls can't. And my husband and I were both like, where is he getting this? And so we've always been really intentional about calling it out. And, just like my boys can go and do anything they want to if they work hard enough and set their minds to it, they can do it. Just like, a girl can too. And we just try to sort of remove the gender from those things, because you should get there on your merits regardless of your gender. And I think that's so important. But it's interesting because we talked in some other panels about it starting at home.
Correct.
That's a big part of it as well. And obviously,
Oh, well, it was actually a question that's sort of linking to what we were just touching on, so that's really good. So obviously we've been talking a lot about things like sexism in the workplace and inequities in higher education, but yeah, I think we should link it back to obviously a lot of it comes back to childhood experiences. Like, how do you talk to the girl who is like, when I was a teenager, I was told, so when are you going to give up on science and start having grandkids? By my grandparents, and it's just like, well, you're not gonna see them, but the idea is that obviously the sexism starts young. It starts with, no, you're wearing a dress, you can't get that dress dirty. It starts with, like you were saying, be gentle with the girls. So what do we do about the sexism that girls see, younger girls?
I think we should start with our community and society. Because like in Western Sydney, we at least for my school, I'm not too sure about other school. So I am volunteering for CSIR education. So what I do is like I go to the community, especially like in Bankstown, Boundary. When they have a community day or family day, I make sure my school go and visit and do a STEM workshop, and then educate their family, like the father and the mother. The reason is because I'm very active with Engineering Australia. Every year we give out scholarship. There's one girl who lives in Auckland. She's excelled in her science and mathematics. She got the scholarship. The next day she called me. She said, I can't accept the scholarship. I was shocked because the scholarship is for her to go into STEM. And then she said, oh, my father told me after I finish high school, I need to get married and have kids. I went to the father and tell the father, like, no, she's very smart, she needs me. Unfortunately, I could not because the father said, no, she's my child, she's my, I have the right to decide. So I can't. Ever since that, I try to educate the community. So you educate the community, make them realize how good the girls are. So then they will like realize, actually, yeah, my girl can understand. And like one more thing, like you said, the sexism, yes. Engineer, like I've been an engineer like 20 years ago, I faced a lot of sexism. You just have to stand up for yourself. Okay, like when I was like 21 years old, my first job, I went to site. My job was a site, it's very hard. All the men were bullying. And then I had to go to a toilet. There's no female toilet, right? And then the toilet is like as high as me, and I asked them, how do I climb up? They said, just think you're an engineer, think of how to do it. Okay, I did it. I laid down the brick and I woke up. Doesn't matter. The next day I launched a complaint. I said like, look, this is not a safe place for a female.
And then my boss came and said, like, what's wrong? I said, like, look at the toilet. A simple toilet you can't even provide for women. And then I said, how many? I said, I know I'm short, but I said the women are not comfortable climbing up. And one more thing I need to say. I always wear dress for every occasion, even though I'm an engineer. That is my thing. Why? If you wear, like, I worked in Germany before. Sorry for all the German, my husband is German, so. I went to Germany before. When I went into an engineering company, they dress the same. The female dressed the same as the male. I was shocked. Then I asked the female, I said, like, why are you all wearing like pants and so? Oh, this is our attire. I rock up with a red colored dress, and everybody was looking at me. I said, I'm a female. Only go to site. I have to wear some site clothes. In the office, I don't have to wear my. Is there a rule in the? I asked them, is there a rule in the company? Said I should wear pants and a suit. They said no. There you go.
Yeah.
So you have to stand for yourself. That's what I did.
Now, we could talk on and on about this because you lovely people have a lot to share, but we are out of time, so unfortunately I'm going to have to end it. What I'm hearing from our conversation is there's ripples we've made, yeah, so let's notice those and acknowledge those and let's validate those, but there's more to be done. And it's sounding actually to me more like industry is where we need to be focusing on, and society, as you say, rather than education. It's sounding to me like education's doing amazing things to shift the dial. It's actually the next stage that we need to sort of address from there.